Hey guys, just following up with my Lando Red video, wanted to make a quick tier list about all the Smuggle cards you could be playing in the red-yellow hero combination. Just going to go by color, get right into it. The tiers are pretty self-explanatory. From auto include to you're just going to give the card to your 2-year-old because you don't care what happens to it. It's not playable. First up, we got the Night Owl Skirmisher. And it's a 3-cost 4/3. Only text on is you can smuggle it for 5. It's just really not good. Remember, we're an aggro list, so even if you want to play this when you're like out of cards to play, you're just top decking as another option to have. It just doesn't do anything when played. And for 5, there's so many better things you could be spending 5 resources on. Not even a rebel, so it doesn't really have that going for it. So it's just unplayable in this list, and that's fine. Next up, we have Cassian. Rebel 3/5. You smuggle this guy. He comes out ready. Just honestly was really excited for this deck when I saw the Cassian card get leaked. Then you can consider going into a rebel package from there. This is just an auto include. You're going to put 3 of these in your deck. It's a heroism card too, so lets you run that when you're playing for a cause. So yeah, you're playing 3 copies of this. Really awesome card. It's smuggle for 5, right? So it comes out for 3 with Lando. That's something I did mess up on with Night Owl. Like, yeah, you can play it for 3, right? But you'd rather be playing this for 3. So auto include, amazing card. And even if you have to pay 5 for it, maybe you smuggled this for 1 and you somehow have 6 resources, like that's still just fine. Next we have Armed to the Teeth, a card that doesn't actually really see any play from what I've seen, and I've had 3 copies of this in my deck since the inception of this kind of list, this archetype, and it's honestly just an amazing card. I'm playing 3 of this in every single Lando list. What's great is that it's not going to work in most matchups, or not most matchups, but it's not going to work in some matchups. They just have a lot of exhaust, a lot of bounce. I'm thinking the double yellow lists most of the time. So you're probably going to resource this, but if there's a situation that arises where they're exhausted on resources, and this is going to happen on your Lando flip turns a lot, where you have extra actions to use. They're exhausted on resources. You have 2 or 3 units up, readied. You can smuggle this for 2, play it on something, and you're pretty much set as long as you know the combat math checks out to be hitting the extra 4 damage you get. Because it's a +2/+0 on attack, give another unit +2/+0 for the phase. Smuggle cost is 4, so you can smuggle it out for 2 with Lando, and you still have 2 more resources to use on that turn. Surprise Strike's a 2 cost, a lot of 2 cost or less units running in my list. Unfortunately, you cannot use the smuggle ability twice in one turn when Lando's flipped, so you can't also Hotshot Blaster. That would be 5, but if you happen to do that with 5 resources up, that's valid, but would really encourage, if you're building Lando Red, to put 3 of these in your deck. It's awesome. Like I said, I'm playing 4 cause, but I need 3 of these in every list. It's just too good. Next up, we have Hotshot Blaster. There were a couple iterations of this deck where I had 0 of these cards, and that's just because I had a lot of smuggle going on, and I felt that 3 Surprise Strikes were enough, but I think I was just underrating it a bit. Also, you can't attach it to space units, and I found myself ending up all in space at times. So I have 2 copies of this in my deck, and it's somewhere in awesome to auto include, just because it's not as usable as I would like it to be in a lot of matchups. It costs 1 when you smuggle it with Lando, which is just really awesome. I think it's an auto include, just because you want at least one or two. Three feels a bit much at times, but it just, what the problem is you when you attach it, you want to attack right away. You don't have to. It says you may attack, but when you have a surprise strike in hand and you have this able to smuggle later in the game, you're really only going to get one attack in, because your opponent's going to have they should have a pretty good board by that point. So I just found that was kind of an interesting situation. But I look at it as 2 extra surprise strikes that do a little bit less damage, maybe, in case you don't hit them. So I think it's an auto include, actually. And I think Cassian is better if we're going to order them in each tier. So a little bit of commentary on Hotshot. Reckless Gunslinger, no longer in my list, was for a long time. So 1 cost 2/1, Smuggle for 3. So of course back to 1 with Lando, and then when played 1 damage to each base. And you have to do 1 damage, it's not a may deal damage. Just, more late game direct damage. It's only 1, which kind of stinks. It's not good, and it's not awesome, so I think it's just mid. It's not really situational. There's just better ways that we're doing that with the daring raids, and it's just kind of not as good. Of course, it costs 1. And some of the times you're not able to do that one because it does 1 back to your base, just with how the damage is working out in those like damage off games, if you know what I mean, against maybe a Sabine where it's like you gotta hit them for the final hit before they get you, so that sometimes can be annoying, I found. But definitely has its place in some decks if you're running a more underworld Lando red. With Proxima, it's awesome, and then you can send it back with McClunky. But in this version with a more Rebel package, it's mid, and overall just mid. I don't know if it's awesome in Underworld either, but so Zori Bliss, 5 cost, 4/7, Smuggle 4/6, so back to 4 with Lando. On attack, you draw a card, and then at the start of the regroup phase, I believe, you discard 1. Not the most powerful on attack. Maybe you draw a daring raid, that's kind of like the ideal situation, right? And you can just hit some quick burn. 4 cost 4/7, right? That sounds really amazing. I haven't played her a lot just because 4 resources is really expensive in this deck. And this is a common theme, is when you do play a Smuggle card like that, you destroy a resource and it's just going to get bounced. That's just kind of how the state of the game is with all the double yellow going around. One thing, it is a 5 cost, so if your opponent plays a Cunning, it's not getting bounced from Cunning, so it's out of that range at least, and out of takedown range, which is nice. It just doesn't do something when you play it, and that is a bit of an issue. And I hate that that's kind of the state of the game already, but it's just true. It's just not doing enough for when you're playing 4 whole resources, which is most of the times your whole turn. And it just really slows you down when you play something like this, and it gets bounced. And you effectively just destroyed a resource for nothing. So I think it has a place. This is more of a situational card because it's good. There's just a lot of answers to it. I don't even know what the ordering would be here. But I could see it maybe sideboarded against certain matchups where you're like, okay, it's not getting bounced. And maybe I can use that on attack to find some stuff, or at least hit for 4 next turn. With it, maybe a longer game where you need some bigger bodies, something like that. Falcon, kind of a similar situation. you know, we all saw this card get leaked. It's like, oh, it's perfect in Lando. You play for 4. 5/5 in space for 4 is really cool. Played a lot with this. At first, I wasn't really able to play it. It was really weird. After the Lando, or on the Lando flip turn, you're at 4 resources. It's like, well, I have a Cassian to smuggle, and I have a Falcon to smuggle. Maybe even I have an Arm to the Teeth to smuggle. It's like, what are you going to want to play in a situation where you're aggro? It's not Falcon. Cassian, I do 3 damage this turn, unless there's an answer, of course. Arm to the Teeth, I'm getting a minimum of 2 damage. If you're playing that, hopefully you're getting 4. That's when you want to play it. Falcon, I'm going to get 5, maybe next turn. Doesn't get killed or bounced or whatnot. And then let's say your Cassian survives, you can hit for 6 next turn maybe. It's just, there's just better smuggle options. I think this card is surprisingly good overall. In other decks, like some Han decks, it's really cool when you pull this out. I don't know if you can ambush from a U-Wing, that's another discussion. I think it says played from hand. But it's really cool card overall. Just not as good in this list. It's better than Zori because it's in space. But it dies to takedown too. That's something that has really stunk. Again, I think this belongs in the sideboard with maybe 2 copies where you feel safe about playing that card. Next we have L3, Lando's best friend, right? Best droid friend. 2/2 shielded. It's a crafty smuggler that can rescue a unit instead of being shielded. Not a lot of capturing going on. Little bit you see in the boba, right? Some people are running relentless pursuit, so that, you know, that'd be nice to get your unit back. Unfortunately, when you capture something, get it back, no matter what the state was upon capture, it's going to be exhausted. Even your Falcon, because it says Falcon when played, ready it. And you're not playing a card when you rescue it. You're just, you know, it's entering play. You're not playing it. So that kind of stinks. It's a solid 2-drop. Solid 2-drop that you can smuggle out for 2, you know, when you run out of cards, run out of units. Cool thing about L3, it's shielded, so if you smuggle it out, maybe your opponent doesn't have 2 attacks to remove it, because it has that shield. Maybe you can get in an attack next turn when you smuggle this out. So you can kind of surprise your opponent with a shielded unit at times, kind of situationally. A lot of people are going to have a Sentinel, at least sideboarded, you know, if you're aggro. So it's not awesome. Situational for capture. You know, you're probably not hoping to smuggle this most games, but it's like another option to have, right? Like I said, when you run out of gas. I think that's all about L3. Underworld, so, you know, you can bounce it. It's got some Underworld synergy if you're into that package. Hero unit, so of course if you're playing for a cause, this doesn't hurt at all. So yeah, decent little card. Principled Outlaw, 4/4/4, smuggle a 6 on attack, exhausted unit. Wow, yeah, 4 cost. I'd rather play a Falcon smuggled for 4. I'd rather play a Zori smuggled for 4. Exhausting a unit when on attack is, you know, it's not bad. You can hit their base and exhaust the unit. You know, it's tempo-y. Just 4 health. It's just bad. Whew. I'm just gonna be polarizing and say it's down here. It does something. It's more expensive though. I think it's maybe has its a weird place. Not really. Not gonna be played. Let's stop talking about it. Jetpack. Jetpack's actually a really cool card. So 2 costs, +2, +0, give a shield to the unit. Of course, you cannot attach this to a vehicle. And then you get that shield for the phase it gets removed. at the start of the next one. Smuggle's 4, so back to 2 with Lando. Not hero card, unfortunately, for, you know, the 4 cause lists, but this card has actually been really surprisingly awesome. Certain decks you play this to maybe trade with a unit because you get that temporary shield and it's a buff. You're not going to be doing that in this deck unless there's a Sentinel, right? That's a really cool way to clear Sentinel. You keep your unit. I'm not running it in my list. This card's at least awesome. I don't think, right? It's not an auto-include. It's just awesome card. And then there's situations where your opponent, let's say, attacks your Lando for like 3 damage. Gonna finish it off with another unit. You play a jetpack, and that just disrupts what they were trying to do. So they just wasted an attack. Maybe they can't even kill your leader unit now, or another unit. There's a lot of cool stuff that goes on with that. Yeah, sometimes it feels better than Hot Shot. Sometimes it doesn't. I think this has a easy sideboard place for sure, like 2 copies. I don't remember if I talked about this, but with Arms to the Teeth, there's some games where you're never, ever, ever gonna get this 2 hit, right? So you just take those 3 out. I think at least 2 jetpacks makes their way in that situation, maybe 3. So they know it has its place. It's awesome. It does its thing. It's great. I like the card. DJ, 3 cost, 3/5. So, you know, good stats for 3 cost. Smuggle is double yellow 7, so it's a 9 cost out of aspect for this deck. Back to 7 with Lando, right? We're just not we're not getting to 7 in this deck. We're never getting to 7 resources. That's a problem if we're at 7. I have a lot of questions if we're at 7. You gotta steal the resource, right? It's not terrible just because you can play a 3/5 Underworld body in this. You know, Boba's a 3/5 Underworld in Villainy. So good stats, you know, it definitely has, you know, just a unit place in here. So I think it can stay in mid. It's fine. Like, you can play this for the 3/5. That's fine. Underworld. Yeah. Enough about that. Smuggler Starfighter. This is a 3 cost 2/2 trying to make its way into the awesome tier. When played, if you control another Underworld unit, give a unit -3 attack for the phase. Smuggle's 4. Yeah, situational, I would say. It's kind of like, look at it as like a Leia card, where you're playing this to just barely squeak by a win. Like, your opponent has lethal damage on the board, or maybe is close to it. You know, if they have a surprise strike, you're done. You play this, you prevent some damage, and maybe win the game. Problem with that is, it's situational. You need to have an Underworld card. Pro, you can smuggle it. I think I said the smuggle was 4, so it's 2 in Lando. I'd rather just play a Leia. Leia is just going to exhaust a unit, which more than likely will be more than 3 damage. I know a game against Boba Yellow, I just exhausted their Boba leader that had the Boba upgrade, so that saved 6 damage. So I actually think it's not good. There's just better options for what it does, and you have to have an Underworld unit. So it's a 2/2 as well. Rather have Leia for what it does. Tech. Tech, I tried this card for, you know, 20 to 30 games, and I only played it like twice. Kind of the idea, if I have Smuggle and I want to smuggle something, unless this is the only card, I'd rather play all these auto-includes up here. That's kind of the issue. It's a 3 cost 2/5 smuggle for 4. So you can smuggle it for 2 and get a 2/5 body that turns all your cards into smuggle. And my thought was kind of like, okay, maybe late game I run out of gas, maybe I resourced a Daring Raid, maybe I resourced for a cause, and I can pull those back out. The problem was it's just a lot of actions and it's a lot of cost. Maybe you play it for 2, and then all your cards have Smuggle. Well, you already used your Lando Smuggle, so you can't smuggle your Daring Raid for 1, now it's 3. So you just spent 5 resources to play tech and deal 2 damage to something. That's ideal. We're not going past 5 resources a lot, so that's like the most you can do. So unless your tech survives a whole turn, you're not really going to hit it. And when your opponent sees tech in a Lando deck, they just will do whatever they have to do to kill it, just because they don't want to deal with that. And then of course, tech DJ, maybe they think you're running a tech DJ combo, so they're just going to kill it. And it's not even going to do that much, so that would be, maybe it's a good bluff card for that. A little bit worse than DJ, just because it's a 2/5. You can smuggle it for 2, so it has a place of just, I had nothing else to do, I played a tech for 2. It has 5 health. It might swing in next turn. So it's not in the not good category. It's got its place, perhaps. But that's kind of where I'm at with tech. Like I said, it just wasn't what's gonna win me the game late, right? I'd rather play, a Falcon for a cause, Daring Raid, Surprise Strike on a unit. It just wasn't able to fit it into my turns. Was kind of the issue. Last card, Smuggler's Aid. 1 cost, heal 3 damage to your base. I don't remember if it says unit. I think it just says base. The smuggle cost is 3. Why would you play this in this deck? Well, maybe it's kind of the Leia Smuggler Starfighter situation. You're just trying to barely outlast your opponent and get the final damage in. Similar to Smuggler Starfighter, it's only going to save you 3 damage. The pro to this is it costs 1. It's a hero card, so keeps that for a cause ratio up. I'm really trying here. I'm really trying to see the potential. 3 damage is not a lot. Yeah, I just don't think. Maybe. There's some turns you have 1 resource up, and I'm thinking, like, maybe you want to do that. But no, you don't want to do that. I don't think, at least. I haven't tried it, and, I don't really think healing your base is what you want to be doing. So, we're going to give it to my 2-year-old to play with in his version of the deck. That's all I got. That's the red, yellow Lando. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know what I did wrong. Yeah, that's the auto include up here. I have all of those in my deck. I want to do some more playing with Jetpack. It's a cool card. Thanks for watching. Let me know how you guys Lando decks are going. If you want to see this in another color combination. Perhaps green. I know that looks pretty cool. Maybe double yellow. So, thanks guys.